Let's bring in Reid Wilson. He's a national correspondent for The Hill, and he joins us now from Washington. Good to see you.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, so Reid, let's begin with the White House decision to back away from the funding demand on the border wall. Was this the last major sticking point in the budget negotiations, or are there still other issues that need to be resolved before Friday?
Well, it was an unnecessary sticking point. It was the White House getting involved in a negotiation that was really going just fine between Democrats and Republicans up on Capitol Hill. The White House insisting that some funding for this wall be included in the budget really didn't. I mean, that was never going to play with Democrats, and the notion that they were going to try to get it in there despite this Saturday deadline really brought up this notion that we could have a possible shutdown. So now that the White House has backed away, it looks like we're going to get a cleaner funding bill, and the Republicans and the Trump administration can start negotiating and laying the groundwork for a longer-term spending plan that is more likely to include at least the debate over the wall rather than this just sort of last-minute trying to get it in.
Right. So this possible shutdown is coinciding with the end of President Trump's first 100 days in office. And you've actually been doing some research and reporting on how the president has done so far and how he stacks up against past presidents. He certainly thinks that he's been quite productive in the first 100 days. What have you found out?
Well, this first 100 days mark is something that Franklin Roosevelt first came up with in one of his fireside chats. It was actually 100 days after Congress came into session, not his administration. And that first 100 days was historically incredible. I mean, they passed 76 laws. It was the beginning of the New Deal. It was really a moment in American history when Congress and the president worked together like never before. And ever since, every other president has always been measured by that 100-day standard, and they've always come up short. Even John Kennedy, in his inaugural address, laid out all his priorities for his administration, and he said this isn't going to get done in 100 days. So presidents hate this mark, but Donald Trump is paying attention to it very closely. They've talked about all the bills that Trump has signed. However, a lot of those bills are things like naming a Veterans Affairs building in American Samoa and another one in Pennsylvania. Those were two bills that he has signed. Well, one of the bills that President Obama signed in his first 100 days was the stimulus bill, which is still playing out almost a decade later. One of the first things that George W. Bush did in his first 100 days, he didn't get it passed, but at least his tax cut plan had been introduced, so and began working its way through Congress. So the last couple of presidents have introduced big things. This president starting off with, renaming VA facilities.
Yeah, and Reid, I mean, you point out correctly that many past presidents have indeed tried not to be held to that 100-day benchmark. As you point out, President Kennedy, I think it was that famous quote where he said it's not going to be done in 100 days, it's going to be done perhaps not even in 1,000 days. Both President Clinton, President Obama, President Bush also said to not hold them to even in some cases their first administration or their first 4 years in office. It was going to take a long time. But President Trump signed this document, this pledge that he made to the American people, and he talked a lot about it, and he made a big show of showing the signature. He delivered a video about it during the transition, and none of those things have yet to be fulfilled. So is that why we're seeing sort of a flurry of last-minute activity as the Trump White House seeks to get anything done that they can point to by Saturday?
Well, they would tell you that they have accomplished at least part of or set in motion about 10 of the 38 things that they have that they rolled out. Actually, they would probably tell you that they've made great progress on all of them, although that wouldn't necessarily be the case. What the Trump administration is trying to do is show some actual progress. And what this president has found out, I think, in the first 100 days is a pretty sharp learning curve in that government is not a business. And I think I've talked about this with you guys before. The fact is you can't run a government like a business. You can't just hire whoever you want. You got to get them confirmed by the U.S. Senate. You can't operate entirely in secrecy because government operates transparently. There are a lot of things that you do in business that you're not able to do in government. This president is what's the line that his allies use is sort of a trial and error president. He tries a lot of things. If some of them work, great. If others don't, he'll try something new. That's sort of how these first 100 days have gone. And of course, they haven't been helped by the fact that there are several investigations, whether it's the FBI or the House Oversight Committee or the Senate Intelligence Committee, looking into various relationships between Russia and the Trump campaign itself.
And we want to be fair to the president. You know, these 100 days have been very eventful. Obviously, it's a big win to get that Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch into the SCOTUS. He launched a missile strike in Syria. He got rid of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is something that he talked a lot about. He's rolled back a lot of Obama-era regulations for sure. And also, according to the Trump White House, sort of their website, he signed 28 bills into law. And issued 25 executive orders. So there's been a flurry of activity. But on those big centerpiece issues, we're talking the wall, we're talking repealing the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare. How do you see that playing out going forward, even by the end of the year?
Well, I mean, the numbers that you just threw out there, like, let's be careful about this. Yes, they signed 28 bills. 2 of them rename VA facilities. A bunch of others appoint people to the Smithsonian Board of Regents. Like, oh, congratulations, guys. That's really great.
Right. Many of them to review policies.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And by the way, the big things that he has accomplished are among those bills, rolling back a bunch of Obama-era regulations, from everything from the Defense Department to the Environmental Protection Agency, the Interior Department, a handful of agencies. Those are the big things that the White House has actually accomplished. But this notion of like 28 bills, like, great, who cares? None of them are going to be a part of the president's legacy when he leaves office, whether it's in 4 or 8 years. But a lot of these larger things, like the wall, like tax reform, which he's going to unveil today, take a lot longer. They take a lot of laying a foundation and doing that really hard political work that the president either hasn't started or has only barely started, and it's going to take a couple more months to go. Let's remember, one of the signature parts of the Bush administration, the George W. Bush administration, was a huge tax cut, a $1.6 trillion tax cut that he did, in fact, start during the 100 days. It just didn't finish by the end of the 100 days. Still gets credit for it. I mean, he started it, rolled out No Child Left Behind in the first 100 days, too. That was a big part of his legacy as well. So legacies can begin in the first 100 days, but whatever he has done in the last 3 months, that's not the end.
Right.
There's still 4 years to go, right?
Indeed. Nothing that displays his ability to be the negotiator in chief, which is part of the reason why people voted for him. Reid Wilson of The Hill, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.